Hey, 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 what's up, Crown Nation? Happy Mother's Day. So today we are, number one, honoring all mothers, all you beautiful ladies that are out there listening today. We want to say Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers, daughters, grandmothers, aunts, nieces, aunties, everybody out there, because everybody has a special place in someone's heart. So hugs and kisses to all of you. Today, our special edition is talking about know when to say when, how to self-preserve. And of course, the reason that we're talking about this is because we know that as women, we boil, right? So this is all about the boiling frog syndrome. But again, welcome, 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 and happy Mother's Day. We're going to turn it all the way down. Okay.
Welcome, welcome. Yes, happy Mother's Day. This is actually an awesome topic to discuss for us as women, just being able to have that person there to help pull you out when we don't know where we are. So we're going to talk about that boiling frog syndrome, right?
Okay. And of course, I have with me my queen, Nefertari, and of course, my lovely mother, Miss O'Garo, who's here honoring us with her presence today. So this is a
thank you for joining us.
All right, excellent. So let's start off with the term boiling frog syndrome. What does that actually mean? So the boiling frog syndrome is a metaphor used to describe the failure to act against a problematic situation, which will increase in severity until reaching catastrophic proportions. And if anyone has actually read the frog story, it's basically, some is stories, some say quotes, but basically, if you put a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out. But if you put a frog in tepid water and then raise the temperature, the frog will never get out. Basically, they'll boil to death, right? And so this is kind of like how sometimes we as women, that's what we do. We are in boiling water. The temperature is rising and we just will not self-preserve and get out. So this is something we want to talk about today because as mothers, this is something that we know that this happens a lot, right? With our children, with our spouses, with our jobs, with our friends, and with our family. And so we want to learn how and know when to self-preserve, right? So let's take it from the top. Personal well-being. What do y'all think about personal well-being?
Well, we got some tips for talking about avoiding the boiling syndrome, right? So one of the things is having a plan. It seems really obvious, right? We got to have a plan, right? And so without a plan, we don't even know where things are going. We don't know when we're off target or not because we don't have a plan. So, and if you don't have a plan, it's very critical for you and your lifestyle when this type of thing happens. So you want to be able to measure your progress. With no plan, you what you're going to measure? You have nothing to measure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to be able to measure our progress. We want to be able to correct things when things are not quite going right. So that means there's something else we got to be able to recognize. So you got to have a plan. Right. And so you just want to be able to know just, whether you're developing your business plan, your marketing plan, or whether it's even something in home life, your personal life, whatever it is, we have to develop a plan. So that's one of the things to do to be able to avoid that frog syndrome.
Okay. And I think sometimes I think that one thing that I know that is happening with some younger people, not all the young people, but with some young people, is that they have a better plan when it comes to parenting. Mm-hmm. So they're using strategies in terms of like education for their children. They're using strategies in terms of like spirituality for their children, religion for their children. They're using strategies in terms of like how to develop them with their character and things like that, where I think in generations previously, it wasn't as formal. And so what we end up doing is we kind of began to mimic what we previously saw in earlier generations, what we saw maybe our relatives doing, things like that. And so because Black women also have this whole thing of, Black women are like super women, and we can do it all. And so we just take on so much stuff, and so we end up boiling a lot. Mom, what do you think about that part?
Well, I really feel like before you even get to the tips of how to correct a problem, you have to be able to really identify the problem.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think disproportionately what happened is that we're not even adequately prepared for parenthood. Mm-hmm. We're not adequately prepared for marriages. Mm-hmm. We're not adequately even prepared for transitioning from one stage of life to the other. And the reason for that is that we have failed to really know who we are. And as a result of that, we get into relationships, and then those relationships start defining us as to who we are. So we become the roles that we are playing.
Right. Well, go ahead, say it again.
No, I'm just saying that we really, we don't know us. Mm-hmm. We don't know who we are. We are defined by the roles that we play.
Right.
And so consequently, that becomes our way of reacting to a situation. Mm-hmm. Instead of us controlling the situation is controlling us. Mm-hmm. And we get on these roller coasters and wondering why we become emotional baggage, because then we take that into trying to lead other individuals. Mm-hmm. And everybody becomes jacked up, right?
Right.
It's like the blind leading the blind. Mm-hmm. And I feel that as young women, even though they're more outspoken than ever before, mm-hmm. we have all of these technological resources, we still do not build on the basics. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're so eager to rush life away rather than enjoying the stages that we are.
Right.
The reason God developed us not whole was a reason.
Right.
He knew that we needed to, before we could walk, we need to build our bones. Mm-hmm. Right? So they're strong enough to hold us up. Before you eat meat, you got to drink milk. And just as we have to develop physically, we also have to develop mentally and physiologically. And that's where the problem lies for me.
Right.
Is that we have not done our due diligence to really understand who we are. Mm-hmm. So we go into situations, and I've coined this phrase over the years. It says, know your limitations and accept them. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question, Ms. Nora, based on what you were saying when we're talking about starting with the basics. Right. What would you say some of those basic things are to our listeners? What are those basics?
The basics are, as a young child, right? We are all given innate abilities, but we never develop them to their maximum potential because we deny they exist. Mm-hmm. Rather than accepting what is given, we're looking on the other side of the fence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're looking at what is absent, not appreciating what is present.
Right.
And we started very early with young girls. They start looking at the long, straight hair, not appreciating the natural kinkiness of their hair. Right. They start looking at, oh, I'm so light, or oh, I'm so dark, rather than appreciating those attributes about themselves. Mm-hmm. So it starts out with God is love. And if we are made in his image, then we are love. And that has to be the foundation of us developing who we are, is loving and accepting who we are. You can ask the average person, why are you here? What is your purpose?
Right.
Why are you here? And I will tell you, you'll find a 50-year-old stumbling, trying to find an answer to that because they're still searching.
Right.
When it's right in front of their eyes. You know, God said you are wonderfully and fearfully made. You know, I knew you when you were in the womb. I know every strand that's on your head. But we don't even bother to take the time because we're so trying to navigate in every direction except for the direction that naturally flows for us.
Right.
And we're constantly in denial. When someone tells you all the time, girl, you're really good at that. No, I'm not. You hear it from 5 or 10 people and you just deny it. Why are you denying it?
Right.
Because, you know, as they say, some of the people will lie to you some of the time, but all the people ain't gonna lie to you all the time.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. And I think also, like, in knowing yourself, this is kind of like when people don't know when to say when because they don't know themselves. So they end up going down a whole pattern of like people pleasing. I know that. Oh man, I did that a lot. I
did too. Yeah.
Oh man, whatever. Like, just call me a little doormat. I was a little doormat. You just whatever you want. Yeah. Yes. And really, people pleasing, or even saying yes when you don't want to say yes, and then you just kind of carry it all the way out, and then you just become miserable, and then you just
just be mad about saying yes.
Yeah, right. But then
you got your own self into that situation.
Exactly.
Right. And then you begin to really create a pattern of blaming others because you don't want to take responsibility for your own actions, for your own decisions, not being able to tell people no, right? And not just not being able to tell people no, but not speaking life into the truth that you feel about that situation or whatever. That's also like, oh my God. So, yeah, it's just like, yeah, you don't know when to say when because you don't know how to even say you don't like it.
Right. And so I'll give you a perfect example of that.
Okay, I will give you one after that.
And so what happened? So this is a situation with individuals that I know, and they say, pray for me. And I said, okay, what do you want me to pray for you on? Mm-hmm. And they'll say X, Y, and Z. Or if they're going for a job interview, pray that I get this job. And I said, but do you want the job?
Right.
Why do you want the job? And they said, what do you mean? Well, I'm asking because you're asking, I want to pray for you for what you want. But if you're doubting and you don't really want it, and you're hoping I get it, you're not going in with confidence because you've displayed all of the talents, qualification, experience that you know are necessary for the job. But then you're saying, well, I don't know if I'm going to get it. You know, God says that if you have not because you ask not. Right. And when you ask amiss. So consequently, I want to be sure that we are joining each other in prayer, that I'm not praying something for you that you really don't want for yourself.
Right.
Yes. I was just going to say another example, just for my own self personally. I've, in the past few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, let me first say, like, the know and knowing when to say when has been on my vision board for 3 years.
Right.
I can say that I've gotten better at just saying no. Like, I really didn't know how to say no before. But even in the past 2-3 weeks, somebody will ask me about something. I'm looking at my schedule. I'm really trying to fit it. And then I just look at it. I'm like, there's just no way possible this can happen. And I have to just say no. And part of me feels a little bad about it. But then I feel relief from it because it's like, you just can't. You can't fit that in. It's just a no.
But let me ask you a question. If your schedule was not full, would you still say no? I think that's the bigger part. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes we learn to self-preserve because time sometimes bumps up against it. But one thing that I've learned, even within the last, same thing, 2 weeks, 3, the last month during Ramadan and things like that, when people are like, hey, can you do that? I can't. And guess what? I feel so good about saying no. And not because my schedule was full or anything like that, because guess what? No, I don't want to. And my time is so valuable right now. I can't fill it with what other people's needs need to be. I need to self-preserve. I need to have a time period where, even with my sons and my husband, I need my me time, right? I need a vacation right now. Hint, hint, I need a vacation. Okay. Just like that. And so what I've learned over the time, so like one of the things, how I learned that I didn't know how to self-preserve was, I would, basically accept things or accept jobs or response, whatever. And then as I'm doing it, I'm not feeling good about it. Like I'm just hating it. Like, and when you begin to like not really enjoy whatever you're doing, that means that the intention is not there either. So you're not even getting rewarded for that act. You're just doing the act, hating it, because again, Allah is going to judge you by your intention. So if you intend to do a thing, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. But the whole time you're complaining, the Lord hears you, what you're saying in the back of your head. He hears how you're feeling in your heart about that situation. And even though it may look glossy on the outside, guess what? You're not going to get any points for that. So I had a young lady recently ask me about, like, she was, saying, hey, how can I, I know I should do the right thing. But I'm afraid of the decision. Why? And so I was asking her, why are you afraid of the decision? Right? Why are you afraid to make a decision that is going to benefit you in the long run? And she was just like, I really want to do these things to make my parents proud. And we say all these different kind of things. Oh, I want to get my degree for my children to see that, or I want to, get this job, be a doctor or whatever for my parents and all this other stuff. But no. None of that is for anybody else. Everything you do in life has to be for yourself. Because at the end of the day, nobody knows how hard you worked. Nobody knows how many sleepless nights you had. Nobody knows how many times you tossed and turned and cried and all these different things and flipped out and all this other stuff. Nobody knows that but you and your Lord. So when you go and say, you know what, I have fulfilled this and I'm pleased with myself, then that's way better than feeling like somebody else is going to be pleased with you. Because guess what? They may not even want that. You know how you feel.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I did this education for my child, and child's like, I don't really care about college.
Right, exactly. Right. And I think along with that, Naima, is that one of the things that you have to really be very cognizant of for individuals, whatever you are pursuing, is that live up to your potential, not others' expectations. Because that really matters. That really matters, is that you live up to your own potential, because one of the traffic lights that I had to learn is stop. Know when to stop, know when to yield, know when to detour, know when you're going down a dead end, know when to get off ramp, right? Know when to get off ramp, and know when you need to be under construction. Because there is a period of time that you have to step back, and you're trying to help everybody else, but you're drowning.
Yes.
And you have to stop and say, okay, Lord, I am going to get out the driver's seat because I'm at a dead end.
Right.
And that's not even the path you were taking me on. That was the path I was taking myself on. And I didn't know that I needed to get on the off ramp. And that's why they have rest stops on the freeway. Even though we know you're going to a destination, they provide you a rest stop.
Right.
But that's what we have to also be cognizant of in our lives. You can go, and you're on your journey and you're trying to get to but you're never stopping for the rest stop. And so consequently, you end up with a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety. And it's not anybody else that is putting that on you, you're putting on yourself
Mm-hmm.
because you're not getting on the off ramp, taking a breather, release and relax, and then come back and know, okay, now I can continue the journey.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like that matches up with the building in regular well-being check-ins.
Okay, that part.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have that regular check-in.
Do you check in with yourself? Who checks in with their self regularly?
I don't do it regularly, but I do check in with myself, especially when I start finding myself getting to unnecessary stress levels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have to stop and do an assessment
Mm-hmm.
and really challenge myself and do that self-talk and say, what is this really all about?
Right.
Now
What is this? You know, why are you at this peak?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get there?
Right.
And I have to just stop and just say, no. I have to check in with Nora and you know, we know ourselves. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so important that we get to know who we are.
Right.
It really is. Because when you become in tune with yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not to say we're perfect, but we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses, and we have to know when to rely upon those strengths. And we have to know when we are giving in to those weaknesses that will assail us.
Right. Mm-hmm. So even for the well-being portion, it's kind of like when we don't, I guess, like for me, when you don't recognize the personal red flags, that's not knowing how to self-preserve. When you basically get overly stressed out, yeah, at that point, that's kind of like a little bit too late. But I think the well-being check-in is kind of like even asking yourself every day. I mean, because to me, it's like it's not just like waiting until you feel like you're having the breakdown. It is asking yourself every day, are you okay? Did you what's going on with you? And I know I do that with myself. I'm like, I don't feel well today. Girl, you all right? You know?
Right.
I have to go in the mirror and ask myself, girl, what's wrong with you? You better
Yes.
snap. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Myself in the mirror a little bit.
But talking to yourself in the mirror is a good thing.
Oh, yes.
Giving that morning pep talk.
Okay. And wait,
I used to be a little more regular at that. I got to get back to that one.
Yeah. There was a mug that says, of course I talk to myself. I need expert advice.
I love it.
Okay. But yeah, that's one thing. Well-being, building in well-being checkpoints or whatever. And then I'm also understanding. So a couple of things we want to talk about in terms of like, what are some regular coaching questions that you should ask yourself? It's like, what are your pressure points? You know, is that pressure tolerable? Because what we also do is we, studies have shown that we begin to kind of go along these patterns, and that when you begin to tolerate something so regularly that it becomes so normal. And then although other people can be like, girl, that's not, and you're like, yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I can do that. Yeah, because you've learned how to boil in that water and you don't realize you're about to boil all the way up and get cooked, right? But that's what we do. We become, the situation becomes so tolerable that we no longer can even recognize that we're in a dangerous place. And that is not good. That's not good when it comes to dangerous relationships. That's not good when it comes to finances. And sometimes we forget about like all of these major vices that are happening in the world, probably because we're not experiencing it. But those are what the vices come in, where people are like, oh, they have addictions, and those addictions begin to take over because they can't live a normal life because they let those things, the intolerable things become tolerable, and now they can't tolerate it. And that's another reason. I know people don't want to hear this, but drinking is so rampant. Everybody has to have a drink every single day after working, which is not normal, people. Drinking every day after work is not normal.
Right.
So you can de-stress. Oh, girl, I need to get a drink. That's not normal. And you know I'm about to say it. That's not Black culture, okay? We as Black people did not have culture where we were drinking, sipping on wine, and drinking all this hard liquor. That's not our culture. We keep going back to this other culture we talk about all the time. That's not our culture. We have to really get back to our true selves, being able to, number one, God created us as a ferocious people, not like in a bad way, but in a way where we can tolerate so much foolishness, right? And still be gentle and still be kind and still be loving. So we need to lean into that, right? Lean into that natural God-given culture.
Well, what that is, Wendell, you just described some of the fruits of the Spirit, right?
That's right. Tell it, yeah.
Because those are, for me, when I start drifting, the question that I ask is, said, if you're not as close to God as you used to be, who moved?
That's right.
And so consequently, when I start seeing myself allowing stressors to dominate, me emotionally,
right,
then intellectually, I have to step back and say, who is the author and finisher of your faith?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then I have to pull myself back, and I have to just start getting back into the Word of God and allowing the Word to be able to calm me down and let me know that nothing is going to happen to me today that God and I cannot handle.
Right.
And I recognize when it's me trying to handle it rather than God, because my godliness start dissipating and Nora start, escalating. I'll give you an example. So if somebody make me mad, I go, that heifer. Okay. I mean, speaking truth. I mean, we have to speak truth to things. We can't sugarcoat. We know when we start using, vocabulary and behavior patterns and rolling eyes and
talking about taking off shoes and
escalating, your voice and all of that. That has nothing to do with godliness.
Right.
It says a soft answer will turn away wrath.
Right.
And it's just being cognizant. It's just being cognizant of that Holy Spirit that's supposed to dwell in you, that guides you. And the fruit of the Spirit is love, gentleness, self-control. Yeah, all of those things are what God is telling us to dwell in us. And when it doesn't, then it should automatically, have you to put on the brakes and step back and say, God, help me. Right. And I need to go into this quiet place where it's just me and my God.
I saw that at the mountaintop. Go in the cave.
Okay.
So moving on to some more of our useful coaching questions that we, Naima kind of mentioned a couple of them. What are your pressure points right now? And the different pressure points and whether they're tolerable or not, it relates to the frog syndrome. One of the other things to think about is, would you think that your current situation was acceptable if it was your friend or your colleague or your family member? Because oftentimes we're able to look and give other people advice, and then we kind of don't take it ourselves, whether we're talking about scheduling or getting up in the morning and, for that early morning prayer or getting your exercise in, or even as parents, when we talk to our children and we tell them what to do, and you'll hear some parents even out in the public don't do as I say, not as you see me do, kind of thing. So it's kind of like one of those situations, with your current situation, would it be acceptable for other people in your life that you really care about? Because sometimes we don't love ourselves the way we should, on the level that we should. It's like how we love other people. It's like putting yourself first. Funny when I say that, one of the things I just thought about, and it's just a small thing. You know how we as women, as mothers, how we'll do like for our family, we do for our husbands, we do for, our mothers, our families in general. And then when it comes to us, we'll prep all the meals, but for us, it's like, oh yeah, if it's just you, you ain't get ready to do that. Look, maybe I might cook a little this, that, but you just don't put it all. I'm good with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich tonight, So it's like, but being able to talk yourself up, not just with the meal prep, but with anything that, when you look at yourself and say, if this was someone else, how would you be okay with it?
Right. And really, excuse me, this is something else I was talking to a young lady about the other day. It's just kind of like, when you're thinking about excellence, are you doing excellence for yourself first? Right? Because you can do it to other people, but this also is a sign of how much you love yourself. Right. And when you don't love yourself, you don't know how to self-preserve. You don't know when to say when, because again, you're so focused on other people's love, other people's appreciation. But when you begin to love yourself, no, that foolishness is not going to reside here. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and I also think that we have such a false expectation of others. It's like, well, I'm not happy. You're not making me happy.
Oh.
Well, okay. I'm not here to make you happy.
Right.
You're supposed to find joy in the things that you do. And we define how much somebody appreciate us,
right,
is if they make us happy.
Right. Yeah.
But if we're not feeling this in this sense of utopia, then we feel like we're invalidated. And I've really been doing a lot of study of the scripture, and I have yet to find where the scripture talks about making somebody happy. Every word that I see in the scripture, it talks about joy. It's learning how to be joyful, about just little small things. Right. And don't get upset. If someone chooses not to do for you, then do it for you. If somebody don't give you a present, go buy yourself a present.
That's right.
Because if it's a sense of pleasure that you want to feel about getting a gift, then go buy yourself a present.
Right.
Stop trying to make it all about and having people feel obligated for your peace of mind, your happiness, your joy. Right. Because if we do that, we are going to be some miserable people.
Oh yeah.
Because the only one that can bring you total peace and joy is God.
Right.
That's the only relationship that you'll ever have where there is total peace and joy.
Right.
I love my husband dearly. I love him dearly.
Right.
But I can't expect him to bring the kind of joy to my life that I know that God can. And so consequently, I'm setting him up for failure to even have that expectation. And then I'm going to be disappointed because if I'm putting him before God, then my priorities are out of order. Now, I'm not saying that we should not try to bring joy and peace and contentment to each other's lives, but not to the degree that it is a measurement of your temperature gauge.
Right.
That you start boiling over, because that person didn't do X, Y, and Z. Okay, they didn't do it. Okay, so now what are you going to do about it?
Right.
And I think that's where we have to go back, and we have to really not use emotions to respond to a situation, but intellect. You know, because God says, he who lacks wisdom, ask for it, and he will give it to you liberally.
Right.
So just understand that we are at times too dependent upon other people to keep us in a state of peace and harmony.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's not up to them to do it. It's up to us.
It's up to us. And that goes back to, again, self-love. So this whole concept of like loving other people and these kind of the epithets we used to have a long time ago, like do unto others as you want others to do unto you. Yeah, that's not healthy, because if you're not healthy, you don't know what, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could be in a bad mental space. And when you say do unto others, if you're not clear as to what that is how you can fall into still allowing other people to mistreat you, right? And then even something as small as like, oh, they didn't really mean it, but you accepted it. And because you accepted it, because you're thinking of, oh, do unto others, and then you begin to also mimic that same behavior, because yeah, you're doing it, and then you want other people to do the same thing back to you. So some of these things we have in the society are just kind of like so broken and not where it needs to be in terms of like our understanding. But something else in when we think about knowing how to self-preserve, it goes back to also, again, what you were talking about, your relationship with your creator, right? So preservation is like, I think that people, when you said that you have a relationship with your creator, I think that some people think of it as like this, like a sense of spirituality that is untouchable, right? Like, oh no, I can't have a relationship with the creator because I'm not in a good place. Yes, you can. You can talk to him. You don't have to have a formal passageway to talk to him. Whatever you're thinking, he already knows. Whatever's in your heart, you already know. It's about bringing those things to consciousness. And when you bring those things to consciousness, that's really more for you than it is for the creator. He's making you more conscious, right? And once you become into consciousness, then yes, you can say, okay, yeah, this is not good for me. This is good for me. All those different things. And then also making sure that when you're knowing when to say when again is about all of the different facets of your life. It's not just about work. It's not just about family life. It's not just about, it's everything. It's like, okay, did I eat too much? Knowing when to say when. Do I have on too much makeup? Knowing when to say when. Am I taking too many clothes off? Knowing when to say when. Am I hanging out with the
looking
right
like friends? A bucket of chicken.
Right. Am I hanging out with the right levels of friends? You know, am I hanging out with friends more than I'm hanging out with my family? Knowing when to say when. You know, am I spending the proper amount of time with my spouse and my children that I should? Am I spending the right amount of time with business and making everything moderate, like in my life? And if not, then guess what? Everything does get chaotic. And so when we start talking about all of these other concepts that this particular thing leads into, can you have it all? And all of these YOLO and, oh, I'm doing for me, I'm doing myself. No. All of that stuff, it's just like all these concepts we have that we're living by and we hear, and we really kind of attach ourselves to that are unhealthy. Like, no, it's not about, oh girl, it's about me first. There is a me first that has a God consciousness about it. And then there's a me first that has a devil consciousness about it, right? And the me first that has a God consciousness about it is always going to be kind to yourself first, then kind to others. That is going to be merciful to who? Yourself first, then merciful to others. That's going to be generous to who? Yourself first, then to others. You can't say, oh, I'm a generous spirit, and you don't buy anything for yourself. You don't take care of yourself. You don't get the meal that's healthy for you. It's like, what is all of this about? And when you're not doing it for yourself first. And that's why even when you think about being on the airplane, it says, save yourself. Right. And even in the Quran and in our religion, it says save yourself and then your family. How can you save yourself you don't know how. Like, you can't save yourself if you're not taking care of yourself. All of that.
So with that mouthful that you just said, the question is, what is it? Think about it. What is it that you need to stop doing? What is it that you actually need to stop doing to improve your situation? Because we all have it. We all have something that we can improve upon, right? And so definitely reflecting upon that, start to jot your list down, with your strengths and weaknesses. A lot of times we say do that in relationships, when you're trying to weigh the pros and cons of whatever, starting with yourself, like do that first. And that way you can see those areas that you really need to work on and get that coach, somebody that could be your sounding board, that can kind of help you through, that accountability partner. It's so important.
But Nev, before you even write something down, first, you have to have a made-up mind to effect change.
That's right.
Okay. It doesn't matter if I write something down. If I haven't made a decision that I'm going to effect change, writing something down is not going to do anything, because no change is going to happen.
It goes back to mindset.
It says a double-minded person, right? So we can't be double-minded about what we are going to do. So if we're truly wanting to effect change, the first thing that I do is I spend quality time with God, and I'm honest. And I said, God, I know I need to make a change, but I am vacillating. My spirit, one side is saying yes, and the other is saying no. And I need you to get me in harmony with you, because either whatever you want to do, if you want to go right, go right. If you want to go left, but God help me to have a made up mind, so that when I start writing these things down, it's not going to be hard for me to make a commitment to effect these change, because I have a made up mind. It's like, I'm going to leave him. I'm staying. I'm going to leave him. Then you hear people a year later and they still talking about leaving. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, people
15
like
years
that.
later, girl, I'm still leaving. Right.
5 years later, they still in that job.
Right. Exactly.
Well, they haven't had a made up mind about anything.
Yeah.
And I think until you have a made up mind that you need to effect change and that you are going to change, that's where the new beginning, the ending and the new beginning can start on that pathway to effect change.
That's a whole nother mindset.
Yeah.
Goals. Like, don't even write them goals down. That's why they don't ever get completed. That's a whole nother mindset. Like, when you're writing those things, those goals down, those things that you want to accomplish, because now, like, every time we keep saying something, I'm hearing all these church songs in the back of my head. With the made up mind. Earlier there was 2 other church songs. I was like, is everybody else having these church songs?
You have to have a made up mind. That's the beginning.
Yeah. That's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah, I'm like, you can drop the mic on that one, really. But mindset is so important. You have to have the right mindset, of course, before you can get to those other action steps.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, you look at that, and the analogy is, alcoholics, right? Before that, when they go into a treatment center, what do they tell you to do? To admit that you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Right? And they know that until you do that, you're not going to effect change. If you go into a drug center, they know that they can't help you if you haven't made up in your mind that you are going to effect change. And you have to admit that. You have to own that. And you have to speak it repetitively. So before you start moving down a track, get comfortable in the fact that, yes, I am ready to make change. And once you do that and you're firm with that, writing down those things and start acting on those steps that will lead you to the change becomes so much easier.
Right.
So let me tell you what Anna heard today. One, you need to have first your relationship with God. That needs to be on point. That's first and foremost. That's at the top.
Yes.
That's
absolutely.
at the top.
Yes.
Sum it up, baby. Sum it up.
Yes. The second thing is the mindset. Your mindset got to be on track. You got to be right in order for you to do anything after that. So God first, then get your mind right. Then you need to get your action steps in place. From there, you need to have your accountability partner, somebody, because even though we get our mindset, sometimes because we're human, even in the Quran speaks of just people have to be constantly reminded. So, you know, you got to have that mindset because, you know, you don't want a coach who's going to have to drag you. You got to be able to walk. You know, we talked about using them, building up those bones and them muscles. So you got to get the mindset right and then bring that coach in and they're there to help you. Like, no, not that way. Come on back, you know, come on back this way. So having that coach, that accountability partner, and then just moving forward, taking those steps. So that's what I heard. What y'all want to add to that?
That's what I heard too. So know when to say when. The first win is the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing, right? And that's that gut feeling. That's what we have to again be intuitive about and know that we already, like, you know how people ask questions, you know the answer. That's why you're asking the question. And like this only becomes conscious until, like, if you were in your 20s, would this consciousness be there, right? Mm-hmm. So like we're older and thinking about these things, and I'm like, man, if I had known this when I was 20, man, you're gonna say, but again, that wasn't your lesson at 20, right? So no, you have to do some other things to build who you are. But yeah, when something in your belly and your gut says, this doesn't feel right, follow that instinct. It's like, okay, that's when you say no.
Right.
Not when your heart in your head. Don't feel sorry that you have to tell someone no. No. If your gut says no, that's it. The answer is no. And the more you emphasize that.
And the other aspect that I would add to what you've already said is that to thy own self be true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stop lying to yourself.
I was just curious to say that's what you mean by that. Yes.
Okay. Yes. You know, you really do. Right. And it's okay because pain affects change.
It does.
Okay.
It has vibration.
Is that you don't build muscles, right?
Right.
Carrying a 2 pound for the next 20 years and talking about you go build some muscle. You have to gradually increase the weight.
Right.
And that becomes painful.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that's okay.
Right.
Because they say no pain, no gain. And you really have to be honest and true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is, that's that ownership that I'm going to take accountability and not keep playing the blame game.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is not the issue. You know, they indicate that if something keep happening wrong 4 and 5 and 6 times, and it's like, what is the common denominator?
Yes.
Right. And really that's a class. That's a class. And that's just like one of the things that we have to teach young women now. To be true to yourself, to be accountable to yourself, to feel your gut feelings, it's okay to not be the popular person. Like, it's okay to not have lashes like everybody else, or you know what I'm saying, or hair like everybody else. It's okay to be the one who is dressing more modest than everybody else. It's okay to be the one that has values and virtues and character that is becoming of God. It's okay. We have to make girls more comfortable in being virtuous and upright, and then they can know when to say when. They will know how to self-preserve, because even when we look in history, all of these beautiful women in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran, in the history books, these women learned and knew how to self-preserve. That's what gave them the power that they have. You're not sitting around with all this power and you don't know how to self-preserve. God can't give you that much weight, and he knows you can't handle it.
Right.
So when people, I want to affect change, you have to affect change with yourself.
Well, right. A better anything starts with self, right?
Everything, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
A better anything starts with self. So being cognizant of that, and as I stated earlier, accept your limitations. It's okay.
It's okay.
You're not going to be able to do everything that someone else does.
That part.
But if what you are doing is your best, and you're giving your best, then that's all God expects for us.
Right.
Yes. He just doesn't want us to be mediocre when we can be excellent. It says good, better, best.
Right.
But it doesn't say that being measured up against someone else, because somebody else is good, better, best is limited or has potential based upon their toolkit. But what is in your toolkit that will help you to get from good, better, best? And when you get there, be okay with it. Know that that's enough.
Yeah.
Find contentment. It said, in whatever state I find myself in, therein find contentment. So be content with if you know that you've given it your all in all, that's your best.
Right.
And just say, Nora, you did your best. And I'm good with that.
Right.
Absolutely.
And go night night. Yes. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna close this beautiful frog syndrome, the boiling frog syndrome story, all the way out with we're gonna close it out with, again, the 4 things that we mentioned above. Again, now if you want to mention those 4 things.
Under the topics, having a plan.
Nope, the God.
Oh, yes. God first. Gotta have God first. Having that mindset second.
Okay.
Yes. And then coach, your accountability partner. Your accountability partner. And oh my goodness, I left something out.
And guess what? We all can't remember, but hopefully you all run this back. We all can't remember because we all do phases. That's another phase we're going through. But everybody run this back, because I think that we have really, really said a lot of jewels that really this lesson can be for anybody, especially young women. So share this with the young women that are of age, meaning 12 up. You're never too young. I know it used to be where they would say, hey, stay out of grown folks' business. But some of this is about building consciousness with our young people early, and not having to look up and be like 40, 50 years old talking about, oh, I'm just now learning how to self-preserve. No, we have to stop that. We have to have more healthy dialogues with our young people, healthy ways of living, so that they can be more successful when it comes to community life themselves. And healthy people bring about healthy marriages, and healthy marriages bring about healthy communities. So Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Mother. Always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Crown Nation. We're asking you all to, again, remember to follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram as well.
Happy Mother's Day again.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Don't forget to get those joyful desserts in before the end of the day, okay? And hopefully you all got some beautiful, beautiful presents. If not, the biggest present would be love, joy, and happiness. All right, Clown Nation, we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.